Well, today is the day. I'm very, very excited to hear and learn from Timothy Ruedeman. He's an incredible Vandoren artist. He does classical saxophone, which is something that is near and dear to my heart because I had to study a lot of it in college. This is going to be a big event. I'm really excited. Please enjoy the Masterclass by Timothy Ruedeman.
My name's Tim Ruedeman. I am a saxophonist in New York City. I specialize in classical music, orchestral music, my quartet, things like that. But of course, I play, kind of all styles of music, be it jazz or rock and roll or kind of whatever the occasion calls for, occasionally Broadway, things like that. I also teach at NYU and at the Aaron Copland School at CUNY Queens, which is not too far. In fact, most of the students there are Long Island folks. At least as many Long Island students there as I have students who are actually from Queens or the city. So yes, I'm here with Vandoren, and they sent me some stuff. So I have some stickers and pencils and lanyards for you guys if you're interested to take with you. I have mouthpieces to try if anybody's interested in trying out a mouthpiece, and I have some reeds and things if you want to check out a different cut of reed. So to start off, our saxophone stuff, I thought what we'd do is I'll play a little bit, as things come up, but I don't want it to be like a concert. I wanted us to kind of work on stuff. So I had a couple of things that I thought about talking about, and I'll run them by you, and you guys tell me what sounds interesting to you. These are things that I think don't get talked enough about, like in the band room, because there's not a lot of time, to kind of discuss topics like this, and they're more saxophone specific. So one of the things I thought about talking about was vibrato and embouchure. Another one I thought of talking about a little bit was intonation, which is almost like a bad word on saxophone, but it doesn't need to be. We can, in fact, play our saxophones in tune. It's true. And so we can talk about intonation and voicing and overtones. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that area at all. And the other thing I thought we might talk a little bit about is articulation, right? So I think, you guys get your music for band, you get your music at home, whatever you're playing gigs, and you have, the music's written out or you're improvising, you know what you're playing. But those other topics can be like a little bit more elusive sometimes, right? In terms of like how we make sound on the saxophone. Whether that's talking about how we play to play in tune, or whether that is talking about how we articulate the instrument. Of those three broad areas, anything pique your interest? Just go ahead and shout out. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about articulation a little bit. So who can tell me what it is?
How you vocalize the intent of the original composer, that things need to either be legato or staccato or accented,
okay,
or in crescendos and all that stuff.
Fantastic. All right. So, and to simplify that even more, we're talking about articulating just how we start a note. And on saxophone, it's really going to be one of two ways. Not only have to, what makes the saxophone make sound? Like this one's not making any sound right now. Why not? Yeah, I got to blow into it. What does that do when I blow into it? Yeah, but what makes it make the sound? When I'm blowing into it, the saxophone, right? What happens? Yeah.
The reed vibrates.
The reed vibrates, right? I blow air across the reed vibrates, that sets the column in motion, and now I get some sound, right? And I can either start that sound with my air just by blowing into the horn, like I did. What's the other way I could start it? You probably start it this way most of the time and don't even think about it. When you guys think about articulation in saxophone, we talk about like what? Yeah, tonguing, right? We think tongue, slur, yeah? Okay. What does that mean to tongue it? Yeah.
Like to separate the notes?
Yeah, that's usually why we do it. And we call it tonguing because we use our tongue, right? So what does our tongue do? It hits the reed, right? And we get more of like of an attack, like a ta sound. So if I use just my air, I can kind of ease in. If I play the same note, with my tongue, you can hear that attack, right? Now, somebody told me that the reed vibrates and that makes a sound, yeah? Okay. If the reed is vibrating and I stick my tongue on it, what happens to the reed? Stops vibrating. So the tongue's actually the off switch, right? We think of it always as the start. It's not. It's the end. Okay? So even when you play your first note and you tongue the note and it has that kind of ta, ta kind of attack, that's really about you getting your tongue in place, building up a little bit of air behind that, and then you take your tongue off, then we get sound. Can everybody say for me like a T, T kind of sound like that? T, T, T. Just say it a couple times. Okay, great. Now when you're saying T, 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 where does your tongue start?
The roof of your mouth.
Roof of the mouth. Very good. T, T, T. So if it's hitting your teeth, if you're saying like T, 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 get your tongue up on the roof of your mouth and say T, 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 T. Okay? So that's what's going to happen on the reed. So your tongue is kind of coming off the reed. So I'm going to let some like air leak out of my mouth, which is bad form, but so you can see and hear that like I'm blowing the whole time. But my tongue's on the reed. It's going to stop. So if I play like one of my articulation exercises that I give to some of my students, and I play something like this, my tongue's creating all the spaces. In fact, we call it a tongue stop. That's something you guys have ever heard before? Use that term? Okay. Saxophonists, more and more I think we start to talk about it. I actually learned it from my clarinet teacher when I was a kid. He was really the first person who taught me how to articulate well. Because we're kind of notorious for being bad at it, sax players, for myriad reasons. But I think mostly because we just don't talk about it enough. And we don't kind of set the bar high enough. And it's important to kind of understand how it works. So a tongue stop is simple as it sounds. I'm going to use my tongue to stop the sound, right? So if I'm slurring C to E, I put my tongue on the reed, the sound stopped, yeah? You guys try that. Just play C, and you do it in mass, low pressure. I'm not going to be able to tell if you're doing it right at all because you're all going to be playing at the same time. Just play yourself a C and E, and here's the tricky part. Stick your tongue on the reed, keep blowing, okay? And see if you can do it. So it just kind of sound like this. Listen one more time. See how I'm still blowing, but no sound came out because I stuck my tongue on the reed? Have at it. Good. Now, can I have some brave souls that want to try it solo? Do you want to try it? You want to try it? Yeah. Okay.
And stick my tongue on it.
So when you hear, it's basically like, we said T, T, T before. Let's switch that to like T, U, T, and like a tut, tut, tut. So the ta, your tongue comes off your reed, which you're going to probably do without even thinking about it because that's how you play most notes you play. And then get back on the reed and stop the sound. But see if you can keep the air going while you do it. That's great. Try and make a short one. Nice. That's great. That's a great tongue stop. Okay? The other way I could stop the sound is to do what if I don't use my tongue?
Stop blowing, right?
Yeah. Air release. But yeah, stop blowing, right? I'm gonna release the air. So who wants to try both for me? You want to try an air one? That's easy. Just give me a ta and then stop the air. Even more ring, like ta. Nice. Now go ta and put your that tongue on the reed. Nice. Very good. What's your name? Cameron. Nice job. I'm going to play you that little exercise again, okay? I'm going to play it 3 times. I promise I will not change the air, okay? So when I'm playing, I'm going to do it all slurred. It's obviously the air is continuous. So just one big breath, right? Uninterrupted sound, okay? I promise I won't change the air. I am now going to change what I'm doing with my tongue. I'm going to do it one more time, and again, the air will be identical, okay? That's not moving my fingers, but that's all my air is doing. It's just on. So can anybody think about why it would be important to do it this way? Do you hear a difference if I do the tongue stops or if I just do air releases? Those sound different to you guys? You hear a difference in the end of the release of the notes? Describe it for me.
Well, it would stop when you stop giving air.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of trickled on.
Yeah.
So when you tongue it, it's like a longer stop than just letting your air go.
Yeah, like more space, right? Yeah, exactly. It's really about playing short and fast and keeping our air continuous, which is what we want to do on a saxophone. It's a big instrument. It's also a conical instrument, meaning it's a cone, right? It gets fat at the bottom. A clarinet is cylindrical. It's straight the whole way, okay? It's easy to stop and start the air. Playing a clarinet is like driving a sports car. Playing a saxophone, it's more like driving a truck. Now, some of you guys are not old enough to drive yet, but you probably get out there on the LIE with your parents, right? The trucks do not want to slow down. The trucks do not want to speed up. They want to get in the middle lane and go. And that's what we want for our air to do also, right? If you have a little sports car, you can speed up, slow down, hit the brakes, hit the gas, what have you, get in and out. Okay, that's something clarinet players can get away with. Not so much us. We want our air to be as continuous as possible. So that's really the idea behind it. So most of you, when you play short, you probably do something like this. Now you hear I'm doing a little breath for each little phrase that time. Here's the continuous breath. Do you hear big differences at this tempo? Not really, especially if I do my tongue stop well, right? If I do the tongue stop and then stop the air, it's kind of like, what's the difference, right? All right, let me try a different tempo and see if you hear any differences. Let me try to do it stopping and starting that tempo. Now you're starting to hear differences? It just gets harder and harder and harder to keep stopping and starting my air. So the best way to start practicing this is on one note. So you can practice that your air is on and using your tongue to interrupt that while not stopping your air. So you can pick any note. Why don't we pick G's for alto and C for the tenor and just... And what I want you to think about is not so much your tongue as you start to play quarter notes. Think about your air being continuous. Go ahead and try that. Play on G's for the alto players. That's great. That's great. And you guys probably do this already. Although when I do go to high schools and junior highs, I do see a lot of players, young players, who when they're playing, to separate it out, they have to do a separate breath for each note. So first you're starting off, you'd be surprised at some of the things I've seen, Cameron. Yeah, I go. But yes, that's a really common thing when people first start to play the instrument because we don't know any other way to do it. So we kind of like stop and start the air. So if you're already used to doing that all the time when you're playing continuous like that, the only difference with the staccato is getting used to like leaving your tongue there longer. So now we're going to start on those quarter notes, and then we're going to change those. If you're thinking ta or ti, we're going to change that into tuts. Okay? So we're going to go from like, and the shorter and clearer they'll come is not from your tongue, it's from your air. Let's try that. So start off in quarter notes, then I'll say switch, and see if you can switch to the tongue stops, the really short ones. Make them as short as you can, as clipped as you can, and keep the air on the whole time. Let's try it. 2, 3, go. Okay, do the short ones. But, even shorter. Use your tongue. Good. Good. When we switch to the short ones, I could see you going, which is the most common thing, and that's the hardest part of it. It's the air, keeping the air on. And when we're kind of slow like this, again, it doesn't matter so much, right? But if I want to go, I can't go, start to get tired out, and I can't go nearly as quickly and as short as if I keep the air continuous. So that's something to just kind of think about, work on. It's probably the primary thing that I hear articulation-wise in junior high school students. Actually, most of my college kids, when they get to college freshman year, we kind of really work on this. And this idea that the air is continuous, and we use our tongue to kind of stop and start that air.
Can you go over embouchure, please?
Yes, I think it's a good idea. Let's talk about it. I like talking about embouchure. Okay. First of all, do we all know what that means, that word? It's a French word. This means your mouth.
Your mouth.
Yeah. It's really how you hold the instrument in your mouth. Okay. The simplest way I like to think about saxophone embouchure is open your mouth, close your mouth. What things have you heard about how you should put the horn into your mouth? What you should do with your lips? What you should do with your face?
That you should bend your lip back. It should rest on your lower teeth, almost like with women, like putting on, when I put on lipstick, like that.
That kind of moving, rolling your lip in, back over your teeth. Who else has heard this? Okay.
Good.
All right. What else? What other things have you heard about embouchure? Like kind of how you hold the instrument in the mouth, yeah.
They should like tighten the corners of your
Tighten the corners, okay? And do what with them? Like,
just like yeah, put them up here.
sometimes you'll hear that. Pull them back, right?
Keep them closed. Yeah.
Sometimes people will talk about a flat chin. Now, there's sort of more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to saxophone embouchure. And when you listen to and watch different players, you may see different things that work for them, okay? So what I'm going to show you today mostly comes, well, it's I guess, is it second hand or third hand from a man named Joe Allard. Joe, at a certain period, was sort of like the guy in New York City. So if you were in New York City and you were playing saxophone and you weren't taking lessons with Joe, it's sort of like, what's wrong with you? Joe played in the CBS orchestra underneath Toscanini and was a brilliant player, and everybody from the classical players and the classical clarinetists to the jazz players at the time were studying with him. People like Michael Brecker and David Liebman, that might be names that you guys recognize if you're jazz aficionados. And on the classical side of things, people like Ken Radnofsky and Paul Cohen and Alan Wan and Harvey Patel, all these famous teachers all studied with Joe at the time. And he was very big on embouchure and overtones and sounds. So I never studied with Joe because I was a little young for that. But I studied with 2 or 3 different guys that all studied with him. So does that make it second hand what I'm about to tell you, or is that third hand? I don't know. Yeah. Or I got it second hand. You're about to get it third hand. I think that's what it is. But let's start with talking about the different components of the embouchure. So I think this is kind of important stuff. So I just want you to take your fingers. Hopefully you guys have washed your hands recently. And these 2 middle teeth here on the bottom, just find them with that finger, okay? All right, and let's think of those 2 teeth as kind of like our fulcrum for what we're doing, or kind of like a point of control. Like fulcrum's like the middle of a seesaw, right? That kind of idea, okay? Now, I want you to take that same finger, and I want you to come down, and the part of your lip that just naturally like hangs over your teeth, Okay? I'm not rolling in drastically this way. I'm certainly not pulling out this way. I'm just letting my mouth be kind of how it normally sits. And everybody's mouth's a little different. So this is going to be for your embouchure. I'm going to come down. I'm going to find those same 2 teeth with that same finger. But now I'm going to do it through my bottom lip. Go ahead and do that. Just so you can feel that there. Yeah? Now, Cameron, you got to go through get that, yeah. So through your lip, not to the front, but get on the top there. I know you got braces. So you might have to kind of pull that in a little bit. I had braces too when I was a kid. It's not fun.
No, it's not.
Okay? Just now reverse that sensation. Instead of feeling your teeth with your finger, use your teeth and kind of feel the finger through your lip. And you could even move that finger, yeah? Okay? This so far has been your reed. All right? I'm going to replace my finger with the reed. We'll talk about the top lip in a second. We didn't talk about that yet, but very important. Okay. So I'm going to put this in my mouth. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to these same 2 teeth. So wherever it lines up on your face, like we're not really symmetrical, right? I had one sort of older colleague / teacher type, and he was, really kind of play off to the side. And I was like, Alan, what are you doing? Why you kind of all on the side of your mouth? And he was like, I'm not. I'm in the middle. He's like, look at my teeth. I look at his teeth, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, his teeth were not straight. And he was like, that's my center, right? So that's where it fits for me. And and he actually studied with Joe a little bit. He's like, that's where we found that spot, and that's kind of why I've always played that way off to the side. So you may see some different looking things. It's because we're all different shapes and sizes. And the idea is to find where it fits for you. And it might change as you get bigger, right? So I'm going to now, through my lip, find the reed, and I'm going to move my reed with those bottom teeth, which means I have to let my top teeth sit on the top of the mouthpiece, like this. Notice how my mouth is open, and I'm not doing anything with the top yet. I'm just finding my reed and moving the reed a little bit. Try that for me. Just put it in there, find the reed, and just kind of move it with your bottom teeth, with your jaw, okay? Through that bottom lip. So the lip should be in between your teeth and the reed. Move the reed a little bit. Now, if the reed can't move, you're too much mouthpiece in. And if it just snaps shut like that, then you're too close to the tip, put a little more in there. Most likely, you might have to move a little bit further out on the mouthpiece, closer to the tip than what you're used to, meaning a little less mouthpiece in your mouth to do that. Does everybody feel like where they can move the reed? Yeah, and let your top teeth rest on the top of your mouthpiece. And then move it with the bottom. And that looks about right to me, because it feels like to me, on my mouth, maybe, 30% of my lip naturally hangs over my teeth if I just kind of push down on it without artificially kind of pulling in like this. And I would too. And there's some things that I think are really specific and important. Mm-hmm. But this part, where it is in your face, mm-hmm. is where it is in your face. I think that really is a big thing. One of the hallmarks, and I don't want to make this a whole history class about Joe, but one of the things that is striking to me. So let's set his work with jazz players aside, because a lot of jazz music is about developing a personal sound. Let's talk about his work with the classical players they did. Now, classical music in general is a little bit more of a narrow, group of accepted sounds, right? Because they all have to work together in the orchestra, mm-hmm. especially clarinet sounds. It's very specific. This is what an orchestral clarinet should sound like. There's some wiggle room in there, but not as much as it is in the jazz world. So if you think of someone like the really, really famous classical saxophonists who then became teachers, and I bet if you go home and look at some of your music, you'll see these guys' names on there, even if you don't recognize them now. Sigurd Roscher, his students sound like Sigurd Roscher. Marcel Mule, he was a French saxophonist. His students sound like him. Joe's students all sounded different. In fact, my teacher who studied with him told me that Joe always hated his sound. But he credits him with helping him find it, right? Being able to kind of find your own tone. And a lot about that was he thought about your own body, the cavity of your head, the cavity of your body creates a different sound as an extension of your saxophone, so that nobody has the exact same voice, just like we don't have the same speaking voice or singing voice, right? So you're trying to really, with your embouchure, make your saxophone work at its best, at its optimum, right? Maximizing the reed vibration is really what this is all about, okay? So I want to be able to move the reed in space with those bottom teeth. And I'll just go through the end of this, because some of this you may remember years later. You may have an aha moment at some point, or you may kind of forget all about this. But then when you revisit it again, if you stick with the instrument, if you keep playing, you'll start to be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that crazy guy came to the music store and he talked to us about, like, made me put my finger on my lip and stuff, right? And so some of that may kind of come back. But let's finish up. So I'm moving the reed with my bottom teeth, yeah? Just like you did. What's your name? Vincent? Yeah. You did a good job of it. At first you didn't realize, but I'm going to show you guys too what I was talking about, like, because this is what I showed Vincent. There's my reed, right? See this? How I'm moving it like this? You should be able to do that with those two teeth through your lip. Okay? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the point where you can move your reed easily. If it's too far up like this, it's going to snap shut. And if I'm down here, I can't move it. I want that sweet spot where it's like, ooh, I can move it, and it has like good resistance there. Now that sounds like you put your teeth on the reed instead of through your lip. And that's good that you did it, because we need to, you can hear the example, right? So it's got to go through the lip. The lips in between is sort of like a cushion, you could think, between your teeth. So let's just talk about the top lips and the corners of the mouth. You said tight corners. You will hear some of that, especially from clarinet players, and they'll talk about flat chins and tight corners. I'm not. I'm going to talk about relaxed corners. Just like this. Everybody give me a big cheesy smile, like really cheesy, yeah? You feel these muscles? Okay, those are bad saxophone muscles. Saxophone is frowny face, not like this, but just kind of more relaxed, just like this. You want to see a good saxophone embouchure? We could look at, I always like to look at Wayne Shorter. Wayne Shorter is a famous jazz saxophonist, but you could look at Coltrane. They always look like they're kind of a little mad or pissed off about something, right? They're just kind of like, no, they just have excellent saxophone embouchures. They're not mad, right? The corners of their mouths are down. So I just kind of relaxing. And then I love this part. When somebody told it to me, this was a real light bulb thing for me, like aha moment for my embouchure. Your top lip, just think of it like a curtain that drops over the whole thing. So I'm going to skip this part where we found my teeth. I'm going to go right to the part where I can move my reed. All right? I'm letting my corners of my mouth relax. And then this is just going to close, but I'm not tight. I'm not pinching. Listen to the sound when I do pinch and tell me what happens, okay? What happened when I pinch my corners?
Sound flattened out.
Yeah.
Like it got flat, right?
Well,
In terms of
the pitch might have changed a little bit, but tell me about the quality of the sound. Did you hear a difference? What happened to it? Yeah, kind of got like muffled, right? Somebody said choked too, right? It was like, as I'm squeezing the reed, I'm not letting it vibrate. So the idea of your corners being relaxed and your top lip being relaxed and just using those bottom teeth to be able to move the reed in space is we're trying to keep the edges of the reed like an upside down U, like a horseshoe. That part, that's the part that vibrates, that's really important. We want to keep that as free as possible. That maximizes your sound and your reed vibration. Any questions about that? And this part I can push on a little bit, and it's less important for the sound. Why is that? Why are the edges so important? That part vibrates, and it vibrates against what? The mouthpiece. That's right. What about the middle? Isn't that also important? Right here? That part does not vibrate against the mouthpiece. Why? Not a trick question. You all know the answer. There's a big hole. It can't touch anything, right? So where does it actually come in contact with the mouthpiece? Around the edges. So if I pinch my corners of my mouth, I'm probably going to restrict how much it can vibrate around the edge. Now it gets a little complicated because I may be contradicting something your saxophone teacher told you or a clarinet player told you. Sometimes the angle at which you have the mouthpiece in your mouth, like when we play clarinet, instead of saxophone is mostly straight, right? Clarinet starts to look like this. Yeah. Oh, now when I take my corners up, like you talked about, now I'm freeing up the sides of the reed to vibrate. So I'm doing different things with the corners of my mouth to accomplish the same thing on the reed to maximize my sound. Does that make sense? How old are you guys? Like what grades are we talking about here? Sixth grade? Fifth?
No, that's me.
Okay. No. Not reading level. What grade are you actually in? Yeah. What grade you guys in? Entering ninth. Does that mean you're in ninth now? No, you're in eighth now. We're in school now, right? Yeah. What grade are you in? Fifth grade. Okay. So, I got to say, I don't know, maybe you guys just struck me as very sophisticated. I don't normally lay this on my younger students, fifth, sixth grades, this early. But I think it's important to realize that, like, the simple stuff, like the air makes your reed go. The reed vibrates, that makes the sound. And if you want it to stop, you put your tongue on it. That's kind of all we really talked about. And then we talked about some embouchure stuff where mostly you want to feel relaxed when you play. Most of us have problems with tightness. All the stuff that we're talking about right now is not really any particular style thus far. Right. This is really like mechanics of how the saxophone works, right? So this is going to be true in like school band. This is going to be true if you're playing a jazz gig. This is going to be true if you're in a horn section in a rock band. So, whether you guys are doing, we're on Long Island, so I was going to say your Springsteen cover band, but like let's switch that to your Billy Joel cover band, right? So when your next gig with Big Shot, or whether you're playing in an orchestra or playing in a saxophone quartet or playing in the school band, all this stuff is kind of the same. These are just like fundamentals for how the instrument kind of works and gets at. And we don't always talk about it that much because there's not a lot of time to do that in school. Yeah.
Just in terms of the burning question for me with the embouchure, when you take a breath, like I've watched others, like you said, some people take it from the top, like this one girl, like this. I call that rat mouth. And then some people take it from the bottom. Is there any particular way?
I tend to take it from the sides of my mouth because, like, if you remember how I started, right? We started by moving the reed like this, and I'm open here. And I just want to leave that as set as possible. So I'll tend to kind of... And I just breathe like this, but my embouchure kind of stays.
Right.
I think, when it comes to talking about taking a breath, try to do it musically. Do it in a place where the music...
The phrasing.
Yeah, where it would be natural to take a breath.
Okay, thank you.
Let's do one more thing with the embouchure stuff. We'll see if you guys can do it. Has anybody talked to you guys about vibrato at all in school? Yeah, you're shaking your head. What grade are you in? 10th grade. Okay, so probably your band director says it to you, and you have any idea what it is?
It's like the sound shakes a little. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, right. The sound shakes a little bit. Anybody else? You guys are still in junior high? Is it junior high or elementary school? You guys are elementary school, right? So I doubt that they're like kind of talking too much. You're in high school, right? And but about vibrato. But have you guys ever heard of it? I'm just going to demonstrate for you, okay? Sound without vibrato, then I'll put it on. This familiar at all? Most instruments play with vibrato. And all the time I get kids, they show up to college or they'll show up to a high school clinic and they're like, they kind of figured something out because somebody said, use vibrato, but they had like no idea how to do it. I don't want to get too deep into it, but let's just talk a little bit about like, how do we do that? Explain it to me this way. If I were a violinist, okay, I'm using this hand on the fingerboard, and this hand is my bow. The bow hand is going to be unchanged, and on the fingerboard, I'm going to do this, okay? Now, Do we know what that's doing on a violin when I do that?
Moving the pitch up and down.
That's exactly right. I'm moving the pitch up and down because if I move my fingers, closer to my face, the notes are going up on the violin. I get further away, they're getting lower, okay? And if I just move my finger like this, I'm kind of raising the pitch and lowering the pitch, kind of surrounding the note, alternating. So that's how I do it on a violin. How are you going to do that on a saxophone? Yeah.
Well, I have two ways. I'm a singer first, so naturally when I sing, I have vibrato, and either I do it from my diaphragm,
Okay.
or I use my mouth.
Well, the first one is appropriate for singers and some wind instruments, and a no-no on the saxophone.
It just happens like
That's okay.
naturally.
Different instruments do it differently. Like you can move your fingers around as much as you want on the saxophone. Like the violin, it's not going to really change it. Although if you see some of the really old big bands from like the 20s and stuff, sometimes they actually used to do that to shake the instruments, which gets at a little bit how we did it. Yeah, it's called finger vibrato. You had a thought? What was it? How do I do it? Sorry? That's a really good thought. It's not how we're going to do it on saxophone, because remember what I said about the truck? You just want to keep the air on. So if I'm just going to keep the air on, the air is my bow hand. I don't mess with that at all. How am I going to make it go up and down like that? Anybody else? Yeah.
You're moving up and down?
Yeah, and we call it jaw vibrato, right? Remember I had you guys move the reed? That's how you do vibrato, okay? And if you want to practice it, it's just kind of like a wah 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 syllable. Just go ahead and say that a little bit, like WA. Wah 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 wah. Right? So you don't change your air at all. You can pick a note. Why don't we pick like our middle F, this F on alto. Okay. B flat for Cameron's brother. Colin? Yeah? All right, good. All right. You can play B flat. Rest of us are going to play F. All right? And just play your F, and then I'm going to put a little vibrato on there. You can listen to me once, and then you guys try it. Play an F natural. That's pretty good. Can I hear some? Can I hear you by yourself?
Okay.
That's great. Twice as much air and do it again. Start straight tone. Then when I say go, do the vibrato. Hold me out on just a nice F. Go ahead. Now. Excellent, excellent. That's the idea. That's the mechanics of it. Now I'm going to push my luck and go a little deeper with you, okay? What's your name?
Marie.
Marie, okay. I want you to listen to Marie's vibrato again. This is what I hear. She goes down with the note. Great, it gets low. Going up, not so much. Try for us again. We'll see if you're able to correct that. Play your straight tone. Go. Okay, first of all, I think that was a little better. If your vibrato's just going down and you can't get it to go up, what do you think the problem is? Anybody have a thought? It might be how you're moving it, but let's say it's okay down, but just not getting much above the pitch. It's just kind of all doing this. Here I'm going down, and I'm doing very controlled, but it's just down as opposed to... Now I'm going above and below. If you can't go up, which is usually what the problem is, you're too tight. You're already squeezing the reed, right? And that is by far the more common embouchure issue. Very rarely do I meet somebody who's like, oh, your embouchure is just way too relaxed. It's just not natural. Because you figured out, whenever you started playing, within the first week or two, to not go like, and if you put some pressure on the reed, you can make a nicer sound. And you figured that out a long time ago. Probably like the third week you were playing. Whether you realized it or not, you figured out putting a little pressure on the reed helped the sound come out. Okay? So we tend to get tighter and tighter and tighter because it feels like you're controlling things better, but you want to be relaxed. And this is why practicing vibrato, I would say, is one of the most basic fundamentals. Even if you told me, like, I don't ever want to play with vibrato, I'd be like, that's cool, practice vibrato, so that you can find the center of your tone, so that you can play in tune, and so that you can develop a proper embouchure. You need that. Being able to do it is almost a test of the flexibility of your embouchure. It should be exclusively from your jaw, your lower jaw. The other way to think about it is this. I even will try to say to students, like, okay, stop playing vibrato, play a note, and move the reed, because that's all you're doing. These are my teeth. This is the reed. Okay, I don't have a lip to put in between in this diagram, but like if this is the reed, I'm blowing and I am moving the reed in space. Okay. Now, do you see my mouth going when I do it? I'm going to do a pretty pronounced vibrato. Tell me if you can see anything. You hear the vibrato, yeah?
Yes, nice.
Okay. Do you see my mouth moving?
No.
Because I'm moving it in this space. It's tiny. I'm moving the reed that much. It feels like, you can really feel like, it always feels like you're doing more than you are, but it's actually tiny. When they measure your tip opening of your mouthpiece, which is the distance between the mouthpiece and the reed, this little spot here, they measure that in hundredths of millimeters, okay? Like the old, I think they still do this. Berg-Larsen mouthpieces have a big number and a small number. The small number is the chamber. But they'll say like 110 over 0 or 115 over 0. So that's for going from 110 hundredths of a millimeter to 115 hundredths of a millimeter. And if you played those two mouthpieces, you're like, whoa, that's really different. And you can barely see it. So it's a tiny amount of space. So if you see your face moving around when you're trying to do vibrato, or if you're adjusting your pitch and you see anything here, that's all extraneous movement. It's not going to affect this tiny little space between the reed, which is actually even smaller than this because we always have it at least a little bit up, or we wouldn't be able to go down too. That makes sense? So most of your face should look still when you're playing the saxophone, unless you're doing something expressive to look cool on stage. But it has nothing to do with your saxophone playing, right? That part is going to be kind of stable. Things the band directors should not say to children. And I bet each of you have heard this. So, when we're talking about our jaw and our lips, and we're talking about playing in tune, does anybody have any idea about that? Tuning their saxophone and embouchure? Have you heard things said to you about that? Tell me.
Like, you gotta keep your instrument up, and when you do playing,
Uh-huh.
you gotta keep like steady breath.
Well, that stuff's all good. But tell me, let's say this. Band director tells you, hey, you're sharp. You should do what?
Loud.
Maybe move your mouthpiece. Okay. That's one thing. We'll talk about that in a second. It has a limited effect, and you can't move it for every note, right? You can't be moving your mouthpiece around. You got to put it in one place, and you're going to stay there. And I'm here to tell you, there is no, yeah, exactly. It's not a trombone, right? If it were, you'd be able to do that if you could like slide your mouthpiece in and out, but it doesn't work that way. And there's no magic place that you can put your mouthpiece that's going to make every note on your saxophone in tune. So if we cannot move our mouthpiece around, what's the other thing to help us move the pitch? Yeah. Sorry? Do what with it? Uh-huh. So have you ever heard like, oh, you're really flat, pinch up, right? Or you're sharp, drop your jaw, right? Okay. So now you're in school, it's your teacher. Don't be disrespectful. Nod. Don't do that.
Or your teacher.
Okay? I can't think of anything stupider to do on the saxophone. Okay? I do not move my jaw around. Look, if I drop my jaw in a jastic way, That's right. I'm home here on Long Island, so I can keep saying jaw, and you guys it doesn't sound funny to you. You won't make fun of me. Okay. Right? If I do this, yes, it does move the pitch down.
Yes.
Okay. How the rest of that sound too? What happened to the sound?
What's bad?
Yeah, it sounded nice and then it sounded not so good, right? Unfocused, right? And same thing, if I pinch up on the reed, okay, yes, it's going up. There's a couple of problems with this. The first problem is you're responding to something that somebody told you. They told you you're sharp, and now you moved your jaw. Okay, well, this doesn't really help you to play in tune because you didn't hear it. You're responding to something that somebody told you. Even if you're looking at a tuner and it says you're sharp, well, now you're responding to something you saw. We want to try to respond to something we hear. That's how we're going to play in tune. We're going to listen more. Is that hard to understand? It's kind of like singing. I'm going to sing a note. I want you guys to sing it back to me, okay? Da, sing my note. Da, good. And so I think I hear some of the men singing a different octave. Sing my exact note. Da, yeah. Okay, amazing. You all did that and you did it perfectly. How did you do it? You mean you didn't like think to yourself like, ooh, I have to adjust my vocal cords and accelerate the air at a specific rate through my voice and change the soft palate of my mouth and my tongue. You weren't thinking about that stuff? You did it all. You did all of that. But you just heard the note and you sang it back to me, right? That's how you play saxophone in tune. All of those things that I talked about physically, when you sing, happen naturally by what? What did I do to trigger your body to respond to be able to sing back to me? I sang you a note, right? You heard my note and boom, you could sing it back. All humans are capable of this, unless you have some kind of a disability or something that's going on with that, but it is a very basic human function. Animals can do it. In fact, they think it maybe predates language in humans. Our ability to match pitch. You hear a note, you can sing it back. It's very effective and important in communication. All those things that we talk about, your larynx, your pharynx, your voice box, your vocal cords, your tongue, your esophagus, these all make your voice work, and it's what we call voicing on the saxophone. Okay? So I promise I'm not going to move my jaw, but I am going to move the note. Okay? I'm just going to play a high D. Now, I didn't move my jaw. This time I'll do it with my jaw. I'm not going to get as much movement. You hear that? And you see it this time, right? I'm getting like a half step. I'm getting like a C sharp out of it. I can get all the way down to an A or a G by going, and I am moving those muscles while I'm playing the saxophone. And I'm just thinking about singing. The hardest part is kind of translating into the horn is that we're also blowing into the instrument, which that part's a little different than the singing. But that's the same idea, and that's why we call this voicing. Right? And at a certain point, it kind of breaks on me. If I can bend it 5 notes away by listening and kind of triggering my ear and my voice, if I'm listening to the person playing saxophone next to me and they're playing the same note and I sing along with what they're playing in my mind, then my voicing is going to adjust just a little tiny bit it needs to get us in tune. It's no different than if you were singing in a choir and you're sitting next to somebody else in the choir and you're trying to match their pitch. You're listening. Your voice will do it all for you. Now you guys are in 5th and 6th grade. Is that just like wildly too hard to understand? Or do you guys think you understood that? Okay. It's hard to do, and you have to practice it a lot. But you understood it, right? Okay, so now you can begin doing that. You know, I turned 50 this year, and I have been trying to play the saxophone in tune for like, I don't know, how old are you in 3rd grade? 7 or 8? Let's call it 40-something years I've been trying to. I'll let you know when I'm finished, okay? So far, I'm a lot better at it than I used to be, but it's probably the thing I work on the most when I practice is trying to play in tune. Okay? But you can begin that journey simply by listening and thinking about singing. And I don't think this is too hard for little kids to understand because you're all nodding your heads and either being like really respectful about it or you actually understand what I'm saying. But I don't think it's that tricky to understand. I don't think we need to tell you to move your jaw. So leave your jaw still and just listen. And you will be on your journey to starting to play your instrument in tune. So important, yeah.
I just had a thought too. Well, we were talking kind of along the same lines. I was trying to play a little bit like Johnny Hodges.
Uh-huh.
You know, he's like a very vocal kind
Yeah.
of style player.
Yeah.
He does these bends that are amazing. And I always thought when I was younger, I remember thinking, oh, I got to push my reed up while doing that. And it never quite sounds like that. And it's really just by vocalizing and, yeah, you know.
Because a lot of what he did was with his voicing.
Yeah.
Now he would, you know, now in certain like, especially big band contexts. So for those of you guys who don't know, he's talking about a very famous saxophonist who was the lead alto player with a guy named Duke Ellington. Maybe we know that name. Yeah. Okay. And so, you know, and if you watch some videos, you'll see him kind of move his jaw a little bit, right? And certainly we will do that. Like that's not, you know, this is my classical mouthpiece, but in a jazz context, I'll, you know, kind of like. It's just like in a way you can think of it as like an overly large vibrato that's used stylistically on purpose to bend the note. But if you wanted to do like a bigger gliss, no, that's not work so great there. All right, kind of a Rhapsody in Blue type gliss. Partially that's a mix of like fingers, embouchure, and voicing. Okay, and I'm actually using contrary motion a little bit. So as I'm lifting the keys, I'm dropping my voicing and it makes that smear. So if you notice, when I get to probably about midway through that little gliss, I'm already on the D key, but I'm at the bottom of my voicing. And as I'm lifting from the middle D to around G or A, I'm dropping my voicing. It makes that smear at the beginning. And then I finish it by letting it go back up to its normal spot. I'll try to do it slowly. See how that was there at the end? That's where the voice was. So if I'm doing a big distance like that, I might combine the two techniques. But that's the idea, and we can really move it around just by thinking about singing. Really, like, I'm bending crazy notes, but I'm talking about just like taking your note that's 30 cents sharp and making it in tune. I want to do that by listening and not dropping your jaw. The other thing that's going to happen, you're going to drop your jaw. It might change a little bit. And now you've stopped listening. And you can't make music that way. We have to listen. I don't care if you're playing by yourself, with one other person, or a large ensemble. It is all about listening. We're constantly listening to each other. And that's our language. That's what we're listening for. And if you're playing and not listening, I can't think of a more annoying person to play with. I don't care if we're reading music and they're just kind of blasting away and playing what they're playing, or if we're improvising and they're just kind of doing what they want to do and not listening to the other players. Right? It's like having a conversation with somebody and they're just talk, and then you want to say something like, yeah, but I'm going to keep talk at you, right? You talk a little bit and then you say, okay, now let me listen to what you have to say. No. say something back, right? And that's what we want to start happening. So if you can think of that when you're in band, to just listen, man, that'll go a long way into you starting to be able to play in tune. And that's hard. It's really hard. I remember like being your age and my teacher talking to me. Maybe I'll end with this. He came over. He used to come to my house, and I started with this guy when I grew up in like Babylon, which is not that far-ish from here, and he would come over, and I was in like third or fourth grade, and we'd play together, and I was playing from my little book, whatever it was, my Ruedeman book, playing some little tune, you know, and he stops me. He says, okay, that's great. You can play the notes fast. You're playing the notes right. I want you to ask yourself this question. And I remember this. As I tell you this story, I can picture my childhood room with the terrible 80s shag carpet, okay? And he says to me, he's like, you have to listen to the sound of your saxophone and ask yourself this question. If I wasn't playing this, would I want to listen to this? And then he played it. I remember thinking, I was like, oh, it's so beautiful how he played it. It sounded so great. And then I played it, and it sounded like it's honking away. I remember I was upset. I was like showing my mom. I think I might have cried. I was like, how do I do it? Like Jim came over and he played for me. And in some ways, maybe that was like a harder thing to say to a young kid who was like kind of just like, hey, make it sound like this. But I'll tell you what it did. After I kind of was like, I don't know how to do it. I remembered this many years later because he got me thinking about it. What it really did was, maybe for the first time, because I think this was like me 2 years into playing the saxophone, maybe 3. I'm listening to myself and really listening to the sound that was coming out of my horn. And he got me to do that. It might have been the best saxophone lesson he ever gave me in my life. You know, and I took lots of them. I stayed with him for, you know, I don't know, the first whole 4 or 5 years or whatever that I played the horn. And he got me thinking about that and listening to the sound. And that's how you fix most of it. It's really not about like, oh, I'm going to tell you to move this or do this. Your body will know what to do as soon as it gets a clear sound message. Just in the same way that we sing. It's a little trickier with an instrument, but if you listen, you're going to get that feedback and you'll start to know what to do. I think that's probably a good place to start. Yeah, you guys made me recall my youth there. It's good. So, do we want to try some stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And or is there anything else that we can talk about? I mean, the only thing we did talk about last time, but I think almost everybody's different, is overtones. But it's a little trickier, I think, for the younger folks. I kind of want to leave the voicing stuff kind of like where we left it. Like, think about singing, practice singing. Sing your saxophone music when you're practicing. Like, kind of sing. Even if you can sing the rhythms out, wow, that's amazing. We don't practice enough without the horn in our hands. You know, put the music on the stand and see if you can play it in your mind. Not by thinking about fingers. The sound. Like, can you sing the little melody? Can you tap the rhythms? I practice like that, and every time I practice that way, I realize, like, I got to do that more. So helpful to not have the instrument. Because that's where we're visualizing and hearing the music. Do we want to try mouthpieces, reeds, all of that? Okay, I got a box of mouthpieces here. One thing I wanted to show you, Jesse. Tell me if you guys have these yet. So these are kind of cool. They're not just the sample packs.
Yeah.
You have sample packs, right? Okay. So what these are? Do you guys? I think I know the answer to this, but you don't rotate your reeds, do you? You know what I'm talking about when I'm saying rotate the reeds? Yeah. Okay. If you want to prolong the reed life, and parents, you guys a license because reeds are expensive, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. You will wear them out. Usually probably you got to read. Maybe your teacher gave it to you in school. And you play that reed till it just won't play anymore, right? It might even have a big bite mark out of it. I've seen like crazy things in junior high school bands with their reeds all cracked up. And to make the reeds last longer, what you should really do is take 3 or 4 or 5 of them, open them all up, wet them, play them for 5 minutes. Put a little number on the back. Do that again the next day, maybe the next time you play. And then after that, every time you practice, on Monday play number 1, on Tuesday play reed number 2, on Wednesday play reed number 3, on Thursday play reed number 4, and then loop back around. That is the idea, to kind of rotate your reeds. So they're doing this now, and I think it's a cool idea. So it's like a subscription service, but they have to do it through you or like you don't do it direct through Vandoren, so you do it through a store. And you guys don't have this yet, right?
No.
So here's what they do. They sign up for them, and they show up every month, 4 reeds.
Oh, yeah?
To the kids. And I think it's actually a smart idea. Instead of buying like a box of reeds, it's also like a little less of a hit up front,
Of course.
you know. And what it does is it eliminates some of the ubiquitous, like terrible Amazon reeds that are happening. So that's kind of their idea with these. I think it's a good idea.
What is it numbered?
And you can switch the numbers. You can say like, okay, I was playing Juno 3s. I want to move up to 3.5, or I want to try the blue box ones, or I want to have Javas. You can do whatever you want, and they show up, and you know. So here, these are for you.
Thank you.
And
Does it work on a kazoo? No.
no, but I know not me, but whoever. You know, the Vandoren guy might call you after this, and then you can ask him about that because they're interested to see what, like, specifically what, like, people like you think.
Yeah.
Is this a good idea as a way to kind of like get people to have their reads? But let's come up. I got mouthpieces for you guys to try. Let me see like what you're playing currently, and there's even like more space people can wander around and play a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Mouthpieces and ligatures, if you try them, must come back to me. If I give you some reeds to try out, those are yours to keep. I also have some swag. I got stickers, I got pencils, I got lanyards if you want those. So, yeah, anybody just kind of come on up and I'll show you what I have.
Anyone has any questions?
Yeah, is there any before it gets noisy if you have questions?
It doesn't matter, but now's a good time to do it. So feel free, don't be shy. Where do I get that suitcase?
You have to be a clinician. You got one of those fancy plastic suitcases. Anybody else? No?
Thank you.
All right.
Very interesting.
My pleasure.
Great job.
This is a queso mouthpieces here.
One of those AL4s or
So what is this? First off, what is your name? What is your name?
Tony Orzano. I'm a teacher here at Paul for Music, and I just tried the AP3 mouthpiece from Vandoren, and I really liked it a lot.
Yes, I've got it
Sounds
on.
great.
I got it on my mouthpiece right here. And what did you think of it? What were your thoughts?
It was in the middle of a classical and jazz mouthpiece, so I could see how it working for both, and it really gives you the control of a classical mouthpiece, and but also the little bit of brightness for that would work for jazz. You know.
I really like it. I have to absolutely share the same sentiments. I just tried both styles on here, and I just feel like it could be a really good, like, solid, like, big band mouthpiece, or
Yeah.
even if you're just practicing classical or anything like that. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What is it called again?
The AP3.
I can't see it. I can't see it from here because it's over here. There it is. And I like that scroll. It's a cool scroll on there. Yeah, it's a cool shape overall. I've never seen anything. It's got a P for perfection. Yes, thank you. Very cool. Awesome.